Columbo goes sci-fi in Mind Over Mayhem. Dr. Marshall Cahill is the head of a government-funded think tank,
Cybernetics Research Institute.
And his son Neil is about to win the prestigious Scientist of the Year award for a paper he's written on molecular theory. Only Neil didn't write the paper.
If anything, he's the fraud of the year.
In fact, he plagiarized it from a late alumnus of the Institute, Carl Finch, and now Dr. Cahill finds himself threatened by colleague Professor Howard Nicholson.
Well, if Neil himself does not confess, there is no power on earth could induce me to keep the lid on this.
It doesn't take a genius to figure out what Cahill's got in store for old Howard. Now, we've seen many types of accomplices on Columbo before. Struggling actresses, besotted art students, and loopy bomb makers. But how about a fucking robot? Yes, Robbie the Robot is in this episode. Robbie was a real-life robot built by Robert Kinoshita, who appeared in numerous science fiction film and television shows during the 50s, 60s, and 70s, most notably in the film Forbidden Planet. Here, he's been built by a member of the Institute to perform various tasks, which Cahill plans to take advantage of in shaping his alibi. Cahill is scheduled to run a war games exercise for some top military brass, but instead hands those duties over to Robbie, or should I say Double M7.
I call it Double M7 because it's the 7th model of the original.
While he sneaks out to take care of Nicholson. The robot clearly can't type properly, so this already wouldn't work, but the wicked plot only gets worse from here.
What are you talking about?
The dastardly Doc steals someone else's car from the Institute and drives over to the Nicholson residence, where he runs the poor fucker over in his own driveway. He then proceeds to carry his old ass all the way into the house and trashes the place to make it look like a burglary. I have to say, this is one of the dumbest murder plots of the entire series, because literally everything Dr. Cahill does during this scene is pants on head stupid. First of all, why even use a car as the murder weapon? Why not just hit the professor on the head? That's clearly what Cahill wants the police to think happened, but that doesn't line up with Nicholson's injuries. He suffered multiple broken bones, injuries more consistent with, well, being hit by a car. Not to mention, it leaves a huge dent on the front of the car, which Cahill later has to cover up by pretending to crash into it in his own car while leaving the Institute.
Damn, I just can't get used to these transmissions.
But how did Cahill not anticipate that there'd be a dent? And how the hell did he not notice it before he left the Nicholson house and drove all the way back to the Institute? He's sure lucky none of these other assholes spotted this huge dent either. Then there's him dragging Nicholson's body into the house. Cahill wants the police to think this was a drug murder, as Nicholson had a barrel of fucking heroin, yes, heroin, in his garage laboratory.
He was doing some drug research for the government.
But Nicholson's already in the garage when Cahill arrives. Why not just leave the body either on the driveway or move it back into the garage? Why carry it all the way into the house? Why trash the house if the heroin isn't even in the house, but in the garage? When he's carrying the body in, Nicholson's shoes scrape the door, leaving a scuff mark to provide a clue for Columbo.
Shoe polish.
But how the fuck did Cahill not notice this big-ass black mark on the door? I might accept it if the scene was dark, but the lights are all on. Cahill additionally goes through the trouble of pouring out 2 glasses of brandy to suggest that Nicholson knew his killer and was conversing with them by the fire before a struggle broke out. But I thought the killer was supposed to be an unhinged drug addict. What the fuck was Cahill doing putting the glasses out? Out of all the mistakes he makes, I think this is by far the worst.
I see what you mean. It is confusing.
Finally, to cap it all off, the doctor inexplicably lights up a cigar and just casually discards the match in the middle of the crime scene. Bravo! This actually turns out to be the trigger clue for Columbo, as the professor smoked a pipe and used a lighter, while his wife didn't smoke at all, meaning that the killer had to be the one who used the match to light a cigar.
I suspected you 10 minutes after I met you.
Why the fuck did he so badly need a cigar at that particular moment anyway? Maybe they could have had Cahill mention to Columbo that he finds the act of smoking to be calming, and after committing murder, he'd obviously have a lot of adrenaline, so he'd want something to help calm him down, and we could have seen his hands shaking a little as he struggles to light up properly. But no, we get none of that. He has absolutely no reason to have a cigar at that particular moment. He just does it because we need to give Columbo a reason to suspect Cahill in the first place.
That first day, I couldn't give a hoot in the hell about a thief. I was looking for a cigar smoker. And there you were.
All the clues feel contrived, as they're all based on everything I just mentioned. I know that the entire premise of the show is Columbo poking holes in the murderer's story like this, but usually the murder at least seems clever initially before Columbo comes on the scene. Here, it's just straight up dumb, and it all serves to completely undermine Cahill as a villain, because he just comes off as incompetent. Remember, this isn't just any murderer either. Dr. Cahill is supposed to possess a genius-level intellect,
I doubt it. You haven't got the brains for it.
making his bungling all the more disappointing. I'm not a fan of Jose Ferrer's performance either. He was a very accomplished actor on both stage and screen, having won the first ever Tony Award for Best Leading Actor in a Play, followed by an Academy Award, making him the first ever Hispanic actor to have won an Oscar. His son Miguel Ferrer was also an actor, appearing in classics such as RoboCop.
You're gonna be a bad motherfucker.
And his nephew is some dude called George Clooney. But man, is he fucking boring in this. Cahill is the kind of character whose icy cold intellect comes at the expense of real human emotions. But whereas an actor like Leonard Nimoy was able to make that kind of character scary, Ferrer just comes off as bland. He glowers his way through the whole episode, never changing his facial expression once. And when you combine his dull screen presence with the idiotic decisions the writers gave the character, you have one of the weakest Columbo villains ever. The biggest letdown since Emmett Clayton last season.
I am so sorry.
Ferrer doesn't even share that much screen time with Falk, leaving their relationship sorely underdeveloped. Although when they are together, it's not that much more engaging than watching paint dry.
Wonderful.
Falk, in my opinion, exhibits a much better chemistry with the supporting cast, namely the kid who built Double M7, and you're not gonna believe what his name is.
His name is Steven Spielberg.
Yes, really.
Steven Spielberg?
Yes, sir.
He has no actual bearing on the plot whatsoever, but I guess the writers wanted to pay tribute to the man who started it all. Columbo's pretty hit or miss when it comes to child actors generally, but this kid isn't bad, and I actually like the scene between him and Columbo where the lieutenant finally meets Robbie the Robot himself.
How do you do?
Well, outside of one hilariously bad line.
I might as well tell you right now, Lieutenant. I'm a boy genius.
We also finally get the return of Dog in this episode, his first appearance in season 3.
I'm sorry, he demoralizes the other students.
What's up with the way Peter Falk says robot?
You mean the robot can operate this computer?
Oh dear, he's not even the only one doing it.
There is no way on earth you can prove that the robot was at the computer that night.
Meanwhile, future Arrested Development matriarch Jessica Walter plays Nicholson's wife Margaret. She's pretty good in this, not to mention she's really hot.
Because she's so attractive.
But she's hiding something from Columbo.
I don't want to offend you, Doctor, but you're not a very good liar.
See, Margaret here is actually a therapist, and one of her patients is Cahill's son Neil, the plagiarizing bastard. Notice how early in the episode they refer to Professor Nicholson as Dr. Nicholson.
Dr. Nicholson insisted I give this to you at once. You seem very agitated, sir. He's waiting in your office.
But really, his wife is Dr. Nicholson. Imagine being told Dr. Nicholson is waiting for you in your office, and you walk in, and it's actually crusty old Professor Nicholson. Talk about blue balls. Anyway, Margaret wants Neil to come clean about the stolen research, while Marshall obviously wants his son to keep his mouth shut. Speaking of Neil, I actually feel quite sorry for this character. He's played by Robert Walker, who Star Trek fans will recognize as Charlie X from a classic original series episode of the same name. Despite being a plagiarist, Neil comes across as quite a nice guy, racked with guilt over his crime and desperate to just get the truth off his chest. It's clear that he only stole Finch's work to try and impress his father, with whom he has quite a rocky relationship.
He stole the work of a giant to win the approval of a tyrant.
In a cruelly ironic twist, Neil eventually takes Margaret's advice and publicly confesses to the theft, exposing himself as a fraud and meaning that Cahill killed Nicholson for nothing. Cahill is hardly pleased. And things only get worse for poor Neil as we come to the episode's final scene. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the worst gotcha in Columbo history. Seriously, it doesn't get much worse than this. Columbo of course knows by now that Dr. Cahill is the murderer, but is unable to prove it, somehow despite the litany of mistakes the devious doc made while committing the crime.
You fool.
So the lieutenant naturally does the only thing he can do and straight up frames Neil for the killing. No, I'm not making this up, but Columbo is. He pins the whole thing on Neil owing to his lack of an alibi, claiming that Neil has been having an affair with Margaret, and even pulling a fake witness out of his ass to falsely claim Neil and Margaret routinely check into his motel as a married couple.
That man is lying!
You tell him, Neil. Unwilling to let his son go to jail for a crime he didn't commit, Cahill finally falls and confesses to Columbo.
You win. I did it.
And that's it. That's how Columbo beats him. I think I'm about to fucking explode into a million tiny pieces. Need I even explain how this is the worst gotcha of them all? For one thing, it isn't even a gotcha. There's no final clue. Columbo doesn't outsmart his adversary. He just straight up strong arms a confession out of him. Via emotional blackmail, no less. Not only is this a disappointing ending, it's outright unethical of Columbo to do it at all.
Yeah, that's right.
People can complain all they want about the planet evidence in Deathlands of Han, but that's nothing compared to this. He fakes a witness and probably traumatizes poor Neil by yelling at him, accusing him of murder, and then having him dragged from the room by police officers.
Advise him of his rights in the car on the way down.
What a truly horrible thing to do. This shows a wildly different side to Columbo's personality. Someone who was willing to do literally anything to get his man. I do not like this side of him, not one bit. The entire finale leaves a bitter taste in my mouth, far more than any other episode. And it's what finally pushes this one over the edge into one of my least favorites of the whole show. It doesn't help that this ending, indeed the whole murder motivation, hinges on Dr. Cahill's love for his son. While we're told repeatedly that Cahill loves Neil, not once is it ever believable. We see that he's willing to do anything for him, we know that, but we don't see the actual love. There's just no warmth between these two actors, no closeness, nothing which indicates to me that Cahill actually gives a damn about what happens to the poor kid. I get the impression that Cahill probably killed Nicholson more so to protect his own reputation and that of the Institute than because he was afraid there'd be negative repercussions for Neil. Perhaps with someone other than Ferrer in the role, it could have worked, but alas, we'll never know. The little cherry on top of this shit sundae is that Columbo pulls out a Cuban cigar that Cahill had given him earlier.
I'll save this for a special occasion.
And together they light up for one last smoke before the episode ends. This appears to be some half-assed attempt to recapture the magic of Any Old Port in a Storm's final scene, but there you felt the mutual respect that had been built up between the Lieutenant and Adrian Carcini. Here there's none of that. Cahill's all, "Oh great Columbo, you beat me, truly you were a worthy adversary," but that just doesn't feel earned. I never felt like Cahill was even close to being an equal to Columbo. I never felt that Columbo had any kind of fondness for Cahill. They just don't have the kind of relationship that this scene has any place in.
You're a strange man. It was a bluff I couldn't afford to call.
Also, does anyone else think they missed an opportunity by not having the robot actually commit the murder? I know that would have been stupid, but if you're gonna have the robot in the episode anyway, then why not? It would have at least made it a bit more memorable, if nothing else. So, you probably think I hate Mind over Mayhem, but that's only because I do. I don't hate the entire episode, other than Dr. Cahill being a waste of space. It's alright, I guess, but I truly despise the ending, and that's what drags it down for me towards maybe my bottom 10 of the series. There are worse episodes than even this though, so it still stands a chance of maybe clawing its way back up to, I don't know, bottom 15. Sorry, Jose Ferrer fans.
All right, it's accepted. Now get out.